after that short break. Next, we have a session by another very special person as our international chief guest. We have with us Mr. Hubert Jenny, who is a senior infrastructure specialist with the Green Climate Fund. He is in charge of climate change adaptation in the Division of Mitigation and Adaptation. He is assisting accredited entities globally to prepare funding proposals. He is leading the preparation of the Green Climate Fund's Water Security Sectoral Guideline. He has mixed international experience in the private sector, setting up public-private partnerships for the delegation of urban services, mostly in Asia. He worked in the last 20 years in operations with the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Hubert graduated from France with a master's in engineering, and he is a chartered professional engineer in Australia, driving innovation that mitigates climate change and social impacts to build back better infrastructures and services. He led multicultural businesses and project teams with international financing institutions and global private organizations. He delivered multi-million-dollar climate-friendly infrastructure projects and policy initiatives that set best practice standards to truly drive sustainable development agendas and ensure communities can thrive in the future while contributing to SDG6, 11, and 13. He leads the first project approved for the People's Republic of China for financing by the Green Climate Fund with co-financing from ADB, AFD, and KFW. GCPAD is proud to have Mr. Hubert Jenny as a special international chief guest for today. Over to you for the session on decoding Green Climate Fund Water Security Sectoral Guideline under SDG6. Over to you, Mr. Hubert.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. So thank you very much for this opportunity to present. The Green Climate Fund, as introduced, is preparing a sector guide in order to help accredited entity to have a better funding proposals submitted to us. So there is about 10 sector guides that are being prepared, basically linking SDG to the climate change SDG 13. So in terms of global context, the sector guide focuses on water security. And as we know, we have about 17 countries that are under extreme water stress, mostly in the Middle East and North Africa, but also in South Asia, especially in India and Pakistan. We have over 2 billion people in 61 countries that live in what we consider high water stress as defined by the World Research Institute. And all this is at the heart of the water, food, energy nexus, which basically means that there is a very strong competition between the different water users, mostly the cities, the industries, and agriculture that take about 70 to 80% of the water resource in any one place. And we have tools for this. We have water accounting, which is basically a way to assess the trend and the forecast in water resource use and demand. And we also have virtual water. Virtual water was a concept developed by a UK professor. He got the Stockholm Water Prize for the virtual water, and he's basically calculating how much water content it takes to produce something beyond the standard water use. And you can Google it, and you will see, if you don't know the principle, a lot of interesting things coming on virtual water. And this came later. He gave birth basically to water footprint. And this is what we use now in order to assess the water footprint of a water company, of a business, in institutional. So basically in SDG6, when we link SDG6 with water security, we basically have for every 1 degree of increase in global warming, we have 7% of the global population exposed, with at least 20% decrease in water resource availability. So it's quite a big deal for countries that are already under water stress. And we estimate that by 2030, water demand will outstrip water supply by 40% under business as usual scenario. And the UNESCO report basically said that key water-related impact from climate change increase water-related disaster, area with water stress, and fatalities for poor water quality. Now, this figure I have on the left side of the slide is taken from the German Ministry of Cooperation, BMZ. I never remember the name in English. And basically, they identify 7 and 24 climate activities for all the SDG6 target. So there is a very strong and very close link between SDG6 and SDG13 on climate action. So the water sector guideline of GCF, they are focused on climate impact. They have basically no interest to focus on development impact. It's a common mistake. People who come to GCF for funding and basically come say this project has a lot of development impact, poverty reduction and all, is not that GCF doesn't care, but GCF was set up as the largest climate fund. Basically, I describe it as the financial arm of the Paris Agreement, is focusing on financing climate-friendly projects that basically reduce climate impact. So the pathway, the paradigm-shifting pathway on water security, and I said this is where SDG6 meets SDG13, we identify 2 pathways. The first one is water conservation, basically mostly mitigation type of project. Remind you that mitigation means reduction in greenhouse gas emission, measured as carbon dioxide equivalent. And under this, we have demand management. So what can we do in order to improve water conservation, limit water demand? What can we do to improve efficiency in terms of non-revenue water, potential for water reuse, minimize water loss also in irrigation? The second part of water conservation is what we call climate smart water utility. We have new tools available to us, digital solution, to develop smart systems that are applicable to the water sector, both in terms of, I would say, urban, municipal water supply and sanitation, as well as climate smart agriculture. So the sensor, the price of the sensor dropped a lot compared to a few years ago, and now is affordable, cost effective. And also computer power has increased for the same price. So we have a lot of computer power. We have very cost effective sensors, so we can measure anything. And we also have Internet of Things. And Internet of Things allow us basically to connect the information from the sensor, the data collected from the sensor, through the computer power. And we have basically big data coming, digital data in massive number, coming into a system, an algorithm that we look through machine learning, which is artificial intelligence, to define and look at historical trends. And they will use those trends to do prognosis and forecast in the future. So very powerful tool available to water operator, to irrigation company. The third paradigm shift, oops, let me come back. The third paradigm shift is a decentralized model. to have, and we still have, centralized water supply, centralized wastewater. Now we have the technology to basically have those, like we do for energy, have distributed water and wastewater, decentralized system at the block level of a city, at a village level, and there is no need to have those expensive primary transmission pipe or primary sewer pipe that will collect the water, take it far away because wastewater treatment plants were noisy, were smelly. But now the technology, we have package plant that can be put underground in a car park, in a park. And all these basically contribute to having a more cost-effective solution, an entry point into sanitation, and basically a lot of saving in terms of mitigation, because transporting water to the house and from the house is an expensive proposition that use pumps and therefore use energy and therefore generate greenhouse gas, emit greenhouse gas. The fourth aspect is what I call resource recovery. There is a lot of potential, especially with wastewater and the byproduct of the wastewater treatment, which is the sludge, to use biogas in order to generate energy for the wastewater treatment process, and also for the nearby facilities. There is also a lot of work being done on phosphorus and nutrient recovery, in order to basically transforming what we had as a waste to become a resource. And then water reuse and water recycling in terms of water stress. So as a direct water reuse, as an indirect water reuse and recycling, we basically consider the term recycling for industry and water reuse for the rest. The type of project we do is basically climate smart water and sanitation project. And there is a lot of cross-sectoral impact. We can use, GCF doesn't use anymore the term nature-based solution. We use ecosystem-based management or ecosystem-based adaptation approaches, which is the same thing. So any project that looks at improving operational performance, efficiency, that reduce water and carbon footprint, that promotes circular economy principle, this is the type of project the GCF would like to finance in the future. The second pathway of water security is mostly adaptation, is basically preservation of water resource. We also use ecosystem-based management in order to do climate proofing of the infrastructure. And we basically start to have a lot of data to compare blue-green infrastructure with traditional, conventional grey infrastructure that will use a lot of concrete. We are starting to look also at alternative water resource as a new asset class in water reuse for rainwater harvesting also, including stormwater harvesting, and the principle of integrated water resource management that is at the core of the SDG6. And basically, the idea is that what can we do to preserve water resource at each step of the water cycle using circular economy and adaptative planning. The type of project we do will be typically a river basin integrated water resource management program, where climate change adaptation feature prominently, institutional policy on the river basin, develop the concept of adaptative planning, water right, who has priority over the water within the water, food, energy nexus. You can arrive at situation like in northern China, where basically the greater Beijing has banned agriculture because there is a water, food, energy nexus. and in the Beijing metropolitan region, priority is given to the capital city of Beijing. So there is no agriculture. Agriculture is in nearby provinces. That also basically impact on food security, because you have to feed a metropolis of greater Beijing of 20 million people. So a lot of challenges, as you can see. So the paradigm shift, the transformational aspect of the project can be institutional, as I say, can also be financial, and can also be technical. And the type of project we will do will be sponge city type of project that integrate flood management, or coastal zone management project for coastal city, maximizing ecosystem-based solution like a constructed wetland. And you have a very nice photo. That's a Garuda from Indonesia. And that's basically a view on how a city could basically take over, coastal city could take over in a nice urban planning and urban development way. So United Nations General Assembly in 2010 declared water a human right. In those days, it was not SDG, but it was the MDG. And basically, SDG6 is taking where the Millennium Development Goal left. Water is a public good, but we have opportunity to crowd in private sector to address the financing gap. The big problem we have is that we don't have enough public sector money in order to finance all those infrastructure projects. So they have water resource require very high capital investment. A wastewater project require 3 to 4 times more money than a water supply project. And straight away, you understand why sanitation is lagging behind water supply. The private sector doesn't only come with financing, but they also come with skills that the public sector may not have. Sometimes they have, but most of the time they don't. And when we look at the GCF water sector in the right, basically most of the projects are publicly funded. We have very few private funded projects. And when you look at the ratio with IFC, World Bank, or private sector operation department and regional department at Asian Development Bank, you have basically similar picture where it's grossly underfunded. We can use blended structure where we mix development money, GCF money, together with private capital in order to de-risk a project and make the project more attractive to the private sector. Type of project, for example, will be a PPP program. In a PPP program, typically you have 1/3 public sector money and 2/3 of private sector money coming. So you basically leverage 1 to 3, which is very good. And on the right, this is an example of how a project could work in what we call concessive leasehold, where the project is partly financed by the private sector and partly financed by the public sector. So basically, short-term assets are financed by under the PPP contract by the special purpose vehicle, and the long-term assets like the pipe and things that last 20, 50 over years are financed under a public loan. So now this is a project that GCF has financed, funding proposal number 119. And this is in northern Gaza, in Palestine, where there is water banking and adaptation for agriculture to climate change. The accredited entity is the French Development Agency, AFD. And in this project, the contribution of GCF was a little bit more than half of the project, but basically this is one of the first example of indirect water reuse of water, basically under the principle of managed aquifer recharge. We are basically using infiltration basin in order to basically put treated wastewater back into underground aquifer. If you have visited Singapore and used Singapore, under the new water scheme, basically 10% of the treated wastewater, of course with very high quality treatment, is being put back into not underground water, but surface water. And this surface water is being used again for consumption by the people. Now, in terms of water reuse, the biggest constraint that we face is adoption by the population. So we have to do a lot of awareness building, explain, because you don't want suddenly people that because you didn't prepare well your project and because you didn't inform well people that the water reuse is very safe to use. Actually, when you think about it, a water reuse project is basically a shortening of the water cycle. We basically consume the same water. When you look at the water cycle, this water is end up in the sea generate cloud, and the cloud rain, and this rain is basically end up in surface water, underground water. So what we do is with the use of technology, high technology, we shorten the water cycle, and we can have water reuse of a very high quality that is safe to drink directly or indirectly, or for use in agriculture. This type of program, of course, have very strong monitoring and evaluation and reporting and verification, because we have to guarantee the safe water delivery. And that's why ESS means environmental and social safeguard is the highest category, because this is the type of project that will require the highest level of monitoring for environment and social. Thank you very much. I put my email in the first page, and I will be very happy to answer any question you may have. Feel free, and I will share the presentation with the organizer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Hubert. That was a very detailed presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if we have any queries, we'll be contacting you. And of course, we'll be keeping in touch. We have a lot to do together towards this. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.